A change in leadership before the start of another legislative session. What does the future hold for minority Democrats in Des Moines? We get an update from the newly elected leader of Iowa Senate Democrats, Janet Petersen, on this edition of Iowa Press.
Funding for Iowa Press was provided by Friends, the Iowa Public Television Foundation, the Associated General Contractors of Iowa, the public's partner in building Iowa's highway, bridge, and municipal utility infrastructure.
I'm a dad.
I am a mom.
I'm a kid.
I'm a kid at heart. I'm a banker.
I'm an Iowa banker.
No matter who you are, there is an Iowa banker who is ready to help you get where you want to go. Iowa Bankers, allowing you to discover the genuine difference of Iowa banks.
For decades, Iowa Press has brought you politicians and newsmakers from across Iowa and beyond. Now celebrating more than 40 years of broadcast excellence on statewide Iowa Public Television. This is the Friday, November 24 edition of Iowa Press. Here is David Yepsen.
Iowa Democrats spent much of 2017 licking their wounds from the 2016 elections. For Democrats in the Iowa Senate, a barrage of Republican legislation kept the minority party on their heels. As they hope for a turnaround at the Capitol and at the polls, Iowa Democrats in the Senate had turned to Senator Janet Petersen of Des Moines for new leadership. Senator, congratulations on your new leadership position.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
And thanks for being on Iowa Press.
Sure.
Across the table, Kathie Obradovich is political columnist for the Des Moines Register, and Kay Henderson is news director at Radio Iowa.
Senator, your Republican counterpart, Bill Dix, has brought in former senator. She was the president of the Senate, Mary Kramer. She's also been a U.S. ambassador. Most notably, though, she was the HR director at what's now called Wellmark. Are you confident in her ability to change the work environment in the Senate?
Well, I guess first what I'd say is it's pretty clear that they are not going to do an independent review like they were asked to do, an independent investigation. I do know Mary Kramer. She's highly capable, and I'm hopeful that she can help change the culture in the Iowa Senate. I would still like to see President Whitfer and Senator Dix apologize to Kirsten Anderson, and I think that would be a step in the right direction to move forward to making the Senate a more welcoming environment.
What do you think you would learn from an independent review after, I guess, everything was aired in the trial after Kirsten Anderson sued for the work environment she was exposed to in the Iowa Senate?
Well, we still haven't even seen the review that was conducted by the Republican appointee Charlie Smithson, but I do believe people would be more comfortable coming to someone that didn't have ties to their job.
This review has been centered on the Republican caucus because of that lawsuit. But are you confident at this point that every member of your own Democratic caucus is clean, that they aren't possibly going to have some allegations pop up at some point?
You know, I think all of us are shocked at the number of cases coming forward in all different types of industries. So what I hope my colleagues know from having me as leader is that if those issues are brought forward to me, that I will take them seriously and follow the policies and procedures outlined in our Senate employee handbook, which asks for an investigation. And, you know, if those rules had been followed in Kirsten Anderson's case, I don't believe Iowa taxpayers would have been charged $1.75 million for the bad behavior in the Iowa Senate.
Have you talked to the men in your caucus about this, and have you asked any of them whether there's anything in their past that could come up and surprise you later?
I have not had that conversation with individuals within my caucus, but I hope people know, especially from my role as oversight chair, that when we see harassment and workplace issues going on around state government, that I take them seriously and they'll be addressed. My goal would be that victims wouldn't be fearful to come forward, but the perpetrators may be a little fearful because there'll be consequences.
Democrats have suggested that the state of Iowa, the taxpayers, should not be paying the $1.75 million settlement. But it's the practice currently under the current existing rules and laws. Do you plan, if Democrats take control of the legislature and the governor, to pass a law saying that legislators should pay these?
We're having some serious conversations. I don't think that there is a single Iowan out there that believes they should be paying the price for what happened in the Iowa Senate.
So how would that work? Would you pass a law? They're having this debate again at the federal level because there apparently are secret settlements at the federal level. How do you handle that legally?
We don't have it mapped out yet, but what I can tell you is that there are conversations going on about how should we address this so that Iowa taxpayers aren't strapped with the bill.
Among just Democrats, rather? Are you reaching out to Republicans in this regard?
I've spoken to a senator, an independent senator, about the issue, but I haven't addressed it with Senate Republicans yet.
What kind of consequences could there be, though, with, you've got senators who are answerable really to the voters? I mean, if we're talking about elected officials here, what kind of possible consequences could you as leader impose?
Well, I think, we may see some consequences when people go to the polls next November. I can tell you that this issue has helped us in recruiting candidates that are interested in running because they don't believe what's occurred in the Iowa Senate should be happening.
Senator, you've spent a lot of time in your life at the Iowa State House in one capacity or another. What's your sense of the culture of the State House? Good culture, bad culture? We obviously have this episode here. Is this a problem? How bad a problem do we have in Iowa?
Well, I think that there are a lot of things that we can work on to improve the culture at the State House and to improve the culture of the political climate around our country. We've seen it becoming more partisan. And, I watched my mother when she lobbied for a coalition of churches when I was a little girl. And I remember her working with people of both parties. And that's the way it should be. Because really, in nearly every facet of your life, you work with people from differing opinions. And we need to get back to that for problem solving.
What specifically in the area of harassment? Is there a cultural problem at the State House? Do women feel that there's a cultural problem there at the State House? Is harassment common at the State House?
Well, look, we had a woman who complained 7 hours after she complained, she was fired.
Right.
There was no investigation conducted. If you were being harassed and you saw that as the example, would you step forward? And obviously the rhetorical question is women don't. Exactly right. So what do you have to do to either get people to stop doing this, get men to stop doing this, and two, to get more women feeling comfortable about coming forward when it does occur? Well, we need people in the legislature, especially Republicans, to take this issue seriously. To have to wait 4+ years before an investigation is conducted is simply wrong. And that sends a message that when you complain, your complaints won't be taken seriously. They need to get serious about this. I have said all along there should have been an independent review. They're still not doing that. I'm hopeful Mary Kramer may assist in this, but until they apologize for what they've done and let people know that there will be changes in the system, I don't think people will step forward.
Have you ever experienced harassment? Has anybody ever made inappropriate comments that you thought were, as you think back on them, think, that was not right, what that person said to me?
Yes, and they pale in comparison to what Kirsten Anderson went through. And I am hopeful that we can change the climate up there, not just for legislators, but for everyone who works in that building.
Any details that you want to offer about what happened to you?
Not really.
Not really. Yeah, just leave it in the past. Well, let me change the subject then. you have come in as the Democrats' leader. You came in at an unusual time, and
Right.
normally you would have an election after the election, right? So what are you doing for your caucus? What are you doing to get ready for 2018 that the previous leader, Rob Hogue, was not doing? What do you bring to the job that's different?
Well, Rob did an amazing job after our election, leading our caucus through the last legislative session and getting Iowans enthusiastic and energized about running. We're doing great on candidate recruitment and working to get our party ready to enter the 2018 legislative session, as well as the upcoming election cycle. And I could tell you that I have not, in my tenure, seen so many enthusiastic Democrats across the state, and Rob's an important part of that. He's still an important part of our team, and if you look at his newsletter, he is still saying we are going to have the biggest political comeback. So I'm glad we're all unified and moving forward.
Well, what did he do wrong?
Rob did nothing wrong as leader. We had the same leader in our caucus for 22 years. Leading a group of senators is not an easy task. It requires a lot of different hats, and our caucus made a decision that going into 2018, we wanted to change things up a little bit, and we're glad to be unified moving forward.
But I guess what people don't understand is why the change. If everything was great, I mean, is it a personality issue? Is it, something that, is different about how you approach the job?
I think that people are making kind of a bigger deal of this than it really is. Rob is a dynamo, traveling all over the state, and I'm focused on our 2018 legislative session and making sure that we take full advantage of what we need to do moving into the campaign cycle.
Let's focus on the 2018 session.
Yeah.
What are the priorities for Democrats in the coming session of the legislature?
Well, we have been having town hall meetings across the state, and the things that we're hearing from people in rural areas and small towns and communities all over is that they want better paying job opportunities in their hometowns. So our focus is going to be on job growth and on improving our skills to help people job up and skill up for better paying jobs. We're also hearing a lot of concerns about our healthcare system and mental health in particular.
There's a special election coming up in Northwest Iowa for a Senate seat. It features Representative Jim Carlin, who's a Republican from the Sioux City area, and the retired superintendent of Lamar's public schools, who comes from the other part of the district. There have been some surprising results in states like Oklahoma, where Democrats have succeeded. This district has twice as many Republican registered voters as Democrats. Should you spend any resources in that contest?
Well, we've been up in that district training volunteers and getting Todd the information he needs to run a great campaign. We're really enthusiastic about his candidacy, and we would love to see him in the Iowa Senate.
How much do you have your fingerprints on that race? There was discussion, for example, one of your members, Jeff Danielson, suggests that one of the things that you could do to help candidates is maybe step back and decentralize campaigns a little bit more. Is that something that you're considering?
Well, I believe part of our role is to make sure when candidates step up and put their names on the ballot to run as a Democrat, that we need to give them training and help them learn how to run a campaign. It's like getting your own little business going. So yeah, we have gone up there and talked to him about how to get volunteers engaged and get his campain up and running. So we're happy to do that.
There's helping candidates, and then there's controlling every aspect of the campaign, including all the money. And some of your more experienced lawmakers may not need that much help.
Right. Right. I think it depends from district to district how senators want to run their campaign. Am I going to have my thumb on every race? I have a different management style than other leaders, and I think you'll see some changes. I'm not going to divulge everything that we'll be doing different in 2018, but I am excited about how things are going to run in 2018.
You've got a governor's race also in 2018. You've endorsed Senator Nate Bolton, correct?
That's right.
Handicap the race for us a little bit. I mean, what do you see happening right now in the primary?
Well, I'm really excited that we have so many Democrats running for office. I endorsed Nate. We sit by each other in the Iowa Senate, and I spent a good chunk of the legislative session trying to convince him to run, but I will be happy with any of our Democratic nominees. They are out around the state talking to voters, talking about a Democratic message and how things would change with Democratic leadership. And so I'm not exactly sure how it'll shake out with that many people running. I think, anybody who thinks they have a crystal ball that can say what will happen,
You think it could go to convention?
I think that there's a good shot it could. We're still early on, and, every day things change in the news on what's happening on the federal front and the state front, and so it's hard to say what Iowans are going to be feeling when they go to the polls.
And do you feel like the party can come back together and unify after the primary?
Oh, absolutely.
So, honestly, so far it hasn't been an ugly primary. I mean, it hasn't been really negative so far.
Oh, I think that they're doing a great job keeping
Senator, I want to turn to the issues at hand here coming up in a few weeks when the legislature starts. Taxes. There's going to be, Republicans are talking about a tax reform bill, maybe a tax cut bill. What's the Democratic idea for changing Iowa's tax system?
Well, one thing that we're hearing around the state is frustration with giving so many of our tax dollars away to out-of-state corporations. There's concern about the $20 million gift to Apple, a company that didn't need it. Could those dollars have been used more effectively trying to spur economic development and small business growth in communities across our state, trying to help create jobs in communities that really could use more jobs?
Many of those communities, Senator, will tell you we've got to have those credits. We hate it too, but every other state plays that game. Why is that a bad thing for Iowa not to do?
I'm not saying that all tax credits are bad, but I do think we need to look at how we're using our resources.
Do you think Iowa needs a tax reform bill or a tax cut in addition to reform?
Well, right now, when we're not able to fund essential services, we have drastically underfunded our public education system. We have a healthcare system that's in crisis right now. I think that it would be very dangerous for our state to be looking at cutting even more taxes out of our budget situation. Look, we had a budget surplus before Republicans took over, and they have wiped that away, and we have not reaped rewards that can put more resources in our classrooms. And so we need to really focus on services Iowans depend on.
They say the revenues are down because the farm economy is in the tank. What do you say to that?
I say that, we have not reaped rewards from their tax experiments, and it's hurting Iowans all across the state.
You and other Democrats have been fiercely critical of Governor Branstad for privatizing the Medicaid system in Iowa. He did it, he says, because there was a need to control costs. What would be your alternative at this point as the Democratic Party to control costs in the Medicaid system if it's not privately managed?
Look, Democrats voted to put the brakes on privatizing Medicaid, and we were in lockstep on that. Democrats are still in lockstep that our state would be better served by bringing Medicaid back under state management like they did successfully in Connecticut, a state that has a bigger population than Iowa. When we went to a privatized program, it's making it harder for families to get the care they need, and it's making it harder for Iowa providers to get paid, and we are losing infrastructure, and it's becoming a dangerous situation in our state.
How so?
Well, when you lose health care in small towns and communities and even providers in the cities, it makes it harder for people to want to live and work in those communities where they can't access care.
So the previous system, which was a state-run system, there were bad estimates on how much it would cost. If you went back to that state-run system, how would you control the costs?
Well, I think if we had a state-run system again, we would have more understanding of where the costs are going to come from than we do in this hodgepodge system where, providers have to apply to all these different types of services. It has become an absolute mess for providers and for families. And I believe if we bring it back in, we will be able to take a better look at data analytics and do some things to help rein it in.
Some members of your caucus, I think, and at least some Democrats have been calling for Medicare for all. That is, an opportunity for people to buy into the Medicare system. Do you agree with that approach? And if so, how would the state pay for that?
What I can say is there's a lot of different ideas being thrown out on ways that we might improve the healthcare system. I am interested in bringing the Medicaid system back in to be run by the state, but I'm open to looking at other suggestions as well.
Is there enough money in the state system, even if you shut off some of these corporate incentives, et cetera, is there enough money for the state without perhaps the participation of the federal government to maintain expanded Medicaid and also make sure that you have health care opportunities for everybody in the state?
If the federal government does not help with Medicaid, we will all be in trouble, especially when you look at the number of Iowans that get Medicaid services and how that impacts our hospitals and nursing homes around the state. When you have 50 or 60% of your patients on Medicaid, if we're not receiving assistance from hospitals, that will impact all of us because hospitals and nursing homes won't be able to keep their doors open.
The man who took the helm at the Department of Human Services this fall has said the mental health system should be a priority item for review in 2018. What would you do to increase access to mental health services beyond what's available now?
Well, for starters, we've got to quit cutting mental health services. And Kathie, thank you for bringing the issue forward. But we have seen cuts to mental health services for Iowa's children in the $10 and $12 million range. And you cannot continue to cut mental health services and expect to see more beds. We have to make it a budget priority.
Would you reopen the two mental health institutions that were closed under the Branstad administration?
I'm not sure how we should handle that, or if we should be looking to more community-based opportunities. I mean, it is a sad state when we have parents losing their children to suicide who are unable to access a bed, and that is not the Iowa that any of us want to live in. I think mental health has to be a priority from both parties.
Senator, another issue facing the state is water quality.
Right.
It's a big urban-rural divide. You're a legislator from Des Moines. First of all, what should the state do about this water quality problem? And secondly, how do you, as a legislator from the state's largest city, bridge that gap that exists with rural Iowans and rural legislators on the issue of water quality?
Well, I guess I would like to tell you that I think we need to look at the issue of safe drinking water and safe water not from a perspective of an urban-rural divide, because honestly, I've traveled around the state. Iowans, no matter where they live, want to make sure water coming out of their faucet is healthy and safe. So I don't think that there is a divide on it. I do think we need to come together. It's a huge public health issue, and I think that the rural areas have an important role to play, and the cities have an important role to play.
You think it was smart for the Des Moines Water Works to file a lawsuit? Didn't that contribute to that divide?
I do think that has escalated the conversation, and So it escalated the conversation in a way that we're talking about water and safe water more so than we had before, but did it cause friction? Absolutely.
You have been mentioned as a potential candidate for other offices beyond the state Senate. You announced several months ago that you would not run for governor. What is your future in politics?
Well, right now I'm learning the ropes of a new job, and that's where I'd like to stay. I've got 3 kids at home and 2 teenagers and a 10-year-old, and I'd like to stay in Iowa and help watch my kids grow up, and I think the Senate's the perfect spot for me.
What is the status of the Iowa Democratic Party? They suffered huge losses in 2016. What is your analysis of where they need to go and what the message needs to be?
Well, you know, I would say I am so excited about representing the other 19 senators that I serve with because they have such heart for service and for Iowans. And we saw this last election, this last legislative session, Republicans taking on a destructive agenda that really hurt Iowans and hurt Iowa families. And Democrats need to focus on issues like job creation, making sure we get back to funding our public schools, and
I'm sorry, I need to focus on the clock.
oh, sorry.
And we're out of time, so I apologize for interrupting. Thanks for being with us.
Happy to.
And thank you for joining our latest edition of Iowa Press. We'll be back next week with Governor Kim Reynolds, joining us for her first appearance on this program. So catch Iowa Press Friday night at 7:30 and Sunday at noon on our May night BTV channel, with a rebroadcast on our .3 World channel Saturday morning at 8:30. For all of us here at Iowa Public Television, I'm David Yepsen, and thanks for joining us today.
Funding for Iowa Press was provided by Friends, the Iowa Public Television Foundation, the Associated General Contractors of Iowa, the public's partner in building Iowa's highway, bridge, and municipal utility infrastructure.
I'm a dad.
I am a mom.
I'm a kid.
I'm a kid at heart. I'm a banker.
I'm an Iowa banker.
No matter who you are, there is an Iowa banker who is ready to help you get where you want to go. Iowa Bankers, allowing you to discover the genuine difference of Iowa banks.